Evening, everybody. Well, what a day it has been. It has been rich and exciting and enriching, and we've had some amazing feedback. As I've said to a few people, it's actually the presenters who've been doing the real hard work today and putting themselves out there and sharing so much of themselves. I very much see today as the beginning of the journey. And I love the themes of imperfection and trying and the process, and it's doing the process that makes you worthy. And I'm even considering picking up my viola again at some point. God help the cats. I'm now going to pass over to Joe Barber from Aspire, who's going to be chairing the panel. So Joe, over to you. Joe, you're on mute. It's the age old.
There we go. Sorry, I'll get used to it one day. It's not like we've had a lot of practice, is it, really? So welcome, everybody, and what a fantastic day. A beautiful day outside. I've seen people sitting out in their gardens viewing some of the presentations, but also equally, what a great excuse to be indoors and really sort of being inspired. I think today has been a real testament to the power of the arts, the commitment and the passion that everybody has put into this, and we couldn't have done it without you all, including the audience. The contributions have really sort of demonstrated the phenomenal work that is going on within the arts, and the generosity of sharing and engaging and empowering young people and communities. And I think we would all agree that this year's experience, that with the pandemic, it's put a lens very much on the importance of the arts, partly for our innate human need to express ourselves, to unite us, and for our well-being, not only to fulfill that creative thirst, but also the arts really as a means of providing valuable teaching tools. I've dipped in and out of the sessions. I've looked at some of the videos and the blogs, and generally I felt that there were themes that were coming out from the day, and so I'm going to sort of like just list some of those themes, if you don't mind, before we sort of like go on to panel. There was a real sense that art creates a belonging, inclusivity, positivity, that real sort of helping those to have self-belief, critical thinking, and those connections. So many people providing safe spaces for finding those individual voices and agency, those aspirational experiences, well-being, but also whilst challenging us to perhaps change our perspectives about not only ourselves, but also the world. So, for everybody out there, not only are you inspiring individuals and communities in the arts, but the ways in which you're doing it so creatively as well has really, really hit home, I think. Just to sort of like say, don't forget about the blogs and the pre-recorded videos. Emma, can you let us know how long those are going to be accessible for? Because I know that they're going to be something that I'm certainly going to be dipping in and out of this week and potentially further on in the future.
Well, with the consent of writers and presenters, they will stay there for the foreseeable future. So for several weeks, certainly, possibly several months.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So the panel really is to round off the day with some thoughts to go away with and reflections for seeking future goals for what we have learned and experienced. So there is chat available for the for the audience, So if we can please ask you to pop those comments in, just thinking about the day and during the panel discussion. So without further delay, let's meet the panel. So if each and one of you can introduce yourselves within 1 minute. Emma, if you can put the timer on. So can we start? I'm gonna sort of like start from how I see you appearing on my screen. So Teekster.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Brilliant. I don't want to make the same mistake. Anyway, I've wasted 10 seconds there. So my name's Teekster. I'm an award-winning artist based in Buckinghamshire. My work revolves around Middle Eastern influences with my British upbringing. So creating fusion type art. My main topic of discussion or the presentation today was basically talking about the importance of mural work and getting the community involved in collective art projects.
Thank you, Teekster. Imrana, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, thanks, Jo. So yeah, my name is Imrana Mahmood. I am a freelance creative producer and arts educationalist. My presentation today was on the art of representation and is basically exploring arts opportunities and also barriers to access that young people face, particularly from underrepresented communities.
Thank you. Andrea.
Good evening, everyone. Lovely to be here. My name is Andrea Zapiraku, and I teach art and textiles in a secondary school in North London.
Thank you. Flo. You're on mute, Flo.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, by the skin of my teeth, just made it. Yeah, so lovely to be here. I am, oh gosh, mischief maker, positive disruptor, and a lover of all things colourful and textiles. So that's about me. Lovely to be here, and I'm looking forward to healthy debate.
Thank you, Flo. Hamit.
Hello, everyone. So my name's Harmeet. I'm a part-time senior assistant head teacher in a school in Northwest London, regional lead for the EdTech Demonstrator Programme, a Google trainer and innovator, and the founder of curriculumwide.co.uk. My presentation today was centred around, is your curriculum fit for purpose for every child? So within that discussion, looking at the need for a student-centred curriculum, empowering students and supporting the reduction of exclusions and student needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And Helen.
Hi, lovely to be with you all. My name is Helen Turner and I'm one of the founders of Act On It, which is a social enterprise that uses drama to really, as Flo said, shake things up a bit, but also to really make sure everybody's got a voice in the arts and to make new bits of theatre.
Lovely, thank you. Do we want Rebecca to quickly introduce? Just say hello.
Hi there, my name's Rebecca Osborne. I'm what's called a graphic recorder. I attend events like this and I will live illustrate as people are talking, and that's what I've been doing all day. I didn't actually mean to illustrate everybody, but I have actually ended up doing that today. So it's been fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right, okay, so our first sort of like point of discussion really, and if I start off with Andrea, and by all means, you know, the panel, they're going to join in as well, so we've got a little system in place. So I think, you know, it has been a really unprecedented year. So what are the key things that you have learned about the importance of the arts
the fact that many teachers hated teaching online. The fact that our classroom was taken away from us was horrendous. We couldn't reach for our usual tools and materials. We had to reinvent ourselves. We had to have a look at what can we do through this new media, which actually was quite inspiring as well. Simply because I felt that I skilled up. I've learned about new artists, trying to think really carefully about, my students are going to be learning online for the whole week. What can I do that's different? How can I change things up? How can I spice things up a bit for them? So that was some of the challenges. But I think the biggest learning that I've had is the fact that the resilience of young people, and they needed the arts very, very passionately and in a strong way, because they knew that this was a subject and this was a media or a method of communication to support them to get through things. And some of the things that was taking place was, right at the beginning of the pandemic in March, through the Black Lives Matter and some of the issues that was announced then, pictures were coming out, were just being sent to me. Miss, what do you think about this? And I just thought, wow, they're using this as a way of expressing themselves, not set homework, just they're using this art form. How lucky are we to be the audience for this, but how lucky are they to have the opportunity to do that? So we've learned that students just blow us away. They're so resilient, they will adapt. Teachers will adapt, but also the absolute fundamental need that the arts is the one thing that has kept them sane throughout.
Yes, definitely. I think that place of the art of really sort of like building that sense of place, but also feeling that it secures your well-being and that mental health. Teeks, would you add anything to that?
Sorry, I need to always remember to unmute stuff. No, I think Andrea said that what kind of things were kind of valid. Just to add to that, really, it's kind of funny when everything got shut down due to the pandemic, the kind of like online kind of like community kind of like exploded. And I think people really wanted art, so they went around whatever ways they could to basically nourish that kind of like creative urge. So it was kind of interesting that even though there was a lack of creativity, people went out of their way looking for it, and even bringing that art back home, or even that could be the culinary arts or kind of visual art storytelling. People actually took up art. You could argue that, someone sit inside and just watching Netflix, but, there was a whole creative team behind making that show and stuff. So during this pandemic, I think, arts is what everybody turned to when they couldn't go out and actually enjoy the physical aspect or gallery. But funny thing is, right now, since everybody's starved of live art, it's like being starved of basically your favorite food. So now everybody has this huge appetite, and they're looking to basically feed that when everything, well, hopefully when this lockdown is over.
Great, thank you. I can see that there are some others of you that want to add into this conversation, but something very strange has gone with my chat. I'm just getting a lot of words overlapping and layering. So
Jo Harmeet wanted to say something next.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thanks. And I was just going to say, during the lockdown, it was great to see the amount of arts being showcased on social media, the creativity being shown, how therapeutic it could be, how it supported mental health and well-being. But what it got me to reflect on was, I think in schools, there's been some great work done to raise the profile of mental health through assemblies, PSHC, student mentors, counsellors. And I do feel that pupils have been encouraged to be more open and talk about their problems. But actually, a lot of mental health issues in schools are commonly related to stress and anxiety of exams. So on one hand, we're doing lots to raise the awareness of mental health, and on the other hand, inadvertently, we are contributing to the problem. And for me, this has highlighted the need for the arts in our curriculum. I feel it needs to be built in somehow. Students need to be encouraged to take part in art-related subjects, and unfortunately, they have been pushed to the side following the introduction of the English Baccalaureate back in 2014. And on the same note, there is the pressure for schools to make sure they're performing in school league tables. But I'd really like schools to take note of this and see how they can do more to support mental health and well-being.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think sometimes it's those implicit things that we're doing that send those messages to our students, rather than making things very explicit and that value of the arts. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Right, okay, so some of you there are sort of said about how really you've adapted to the circumstances of the pandemic, and also how our young people have adapted to that too. Is there anything in terms of how, as educators, as those who are working with communities, how you've adapted your practice to really sort of keep those arts alive for young people? I'm just wondering, Helen, if there's anything.
Sure. I think a real kind of point in time for us, because all our work was face to face. It was always either in schools or community centres or some kind of physical space with people. And when all of this started, I think we just had a choice. We either stopped and kind of rolled over and put our legs in the air, or we just kind of went, well, we're going to have to think. We're going to have to be a bit more creative, like we've always told people we need to be. And I think obviously the practicalities and logistics meant going online and that kind of thing. But I think the value set shifted for us as well. And I think although we've always talked about process and being inclusive, we actually had to rethink, how do we do that when we can't share a look across a room or a piece of body language or a gesture that might just give someone a nudge to speak up or be involved? And so we actually found we had to go back a whole layer and almost put in this kind of prequel to any of our work, really. So whereas you might start a workshop and you might start with some kind of activities, we actually had to start with getting that trust and doing it in kind of quite a, I suppose, sneaky. It was so sneaky, it was obvious. It was the classic, I think, kind of just having those conversations, just luring people in. And I think it was having those conversations that actually meant the bit of work we're currently developing now with the Arts Council into a piece of theatre came out of, let's just talk to people. And instead of having a fixed idea of what we're going to say and pretending we know their story, let's actually just listen. And, people were said in a couple of sessions I chipped into today about that vulnerability being a strength. But I think we've kind of come out of this feeling really listening, just demonstrating listening, been having grace. And it's actually what's given us the dialogue, the stories, the soul, the poetry. It's given us so much more than kind of just the units of action or the style of work. So I'd say we've changed for the better in that we've actually had to really listen and not just say we do. So I think, I think we value people more, really at an individual level.
Wonderful, thanks, Helen. Joe, I don't know if your chat's still playing up, but I can bring people in. I think Flo wanted to say something.
I did actually, thank you, Emma. I actually wanted to pick up on what Helen was saying, because I think what has happened is that we've had an opportunity to get to know pupils, whereas, within a class setting, yes, you get to know them over time, but when they're coming onto the computer and the chat room, the first thing I know I said is, hey, how are you? Good morning. And, they good morning, miss. And there was this real kind of conversation. One of the sessions I was actually having my breakfast and they said, miss, have you not eaten yet? And I said, I'm trying to. They said, well, we'll wait for you. So it was really, they actually got to see teachers as normal, as a sort of, and I thought that was quite nice. And what I think the pandemic has done is allowed a reset. It's really done right. You know what? The pause button is hit and you stop. And the reset is you don't do things the way you do. So you're not going to say, right, we're going to wait for so-and-so. Some students came in, some didn't, some had done the work, some didn't do it. But what I realized is that the pupils became confident, very confident. There are those who might have been shy in the class, really blossomed in the fact that they didn't have to go on camera, but they could speak and they were do the work. And then it'd be like, miss, can I show you? So in the chat, you'd say, yes, you can show me. And then it just popped up and you think, that's great. And it's also about us as practitioners. Now we have an instruction, we're trying to deliver something. We don't see them. How are they going to get it? So we have to break down, okay, I need to show you. So having the visualizer was just like a godsend. Shove the work under, and they were like, miss, can we copy you? And then they would follow you. So lots of things of how you practice, how you work have changed. And as Helen said, I actually think it is for the better. And we can't go back now. We just can't.
I love that optimism. I think Imrana wants to come in as well on that one.
Yeah, I was just going to add that actually, if anything, the pandemic's brought to light some of the flaws in the education system. The fact that when we talked about, for quite a long time, that there's the education kind of, stifle creativity. I think sometimes, it does, and that's not necessarily through the teachers. I think it's through the system because we're all geared towards exams and testing and the constant kind of, lack of funding towards the arts as well. The fact that what children were able to self-manage and actually enjoy arts, outside of the school as well, I think was quite important.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. It's quite an interesting one, wasn't it, really, as well, because I think something that came to light for us in AP was the fact that, a lot of students didn't have access to technology. So, finding ways of still engaging them and building those bridges, really. And sometimes we had things being sent back, little visuals of their work through their, messages and WhatsApp, and it was quite interesting how technology became another layer of the barriers, really, but again made us think really outside the box. How are we going to get around that? Okay, so I think again, in terms of thinking like that, and I think something that has come across very much through today is really the importance of belonging. And a lot of presenters have been talking about that element of belonging. So how can we raise that inclusivity? One of the terms that gets used is cultural capital. So how can we build those cultural confidences for all of our learners? I'm going to come back to Andrea with that one, please.
I'm quite fascinated to pick Harmeet's brain later, and we'll probably have a chat with you later, because I think this is really something that you're having fun with. But for me, it's quite simply making sure that what you are teaching to the children and what you teach to your students, they can see themselves in that. That you are teaching their culture, their people, their community. You're bringing the role models into the classroom with them. It's not just boring white people on there at the front. You are really making it diverse. And it's about making sure that when we are employing our staff, that we are looking at the different types of skills, different types of backgrounds which they can bring, and that they are part of the community. So it's the mirror image. And I was just remembering, I was speaking to George the poet yesterday, and we were having a conversation about this. And he was raised and went to primary school where I teach in Brent, and he felt that he learned so much more from his primary school years than when he went to secondary school, and he went to a grammar school. And he goes, there was nothing, I did not see myself in any of that text. I didn't see myself in any of those displays on the wall. I didn't see myself in a reflection of any of those teachers being my role models. And I thought that was really powerful. So I guess it's making sure that we are, what we're teaching, who we're representing, is a mirror reflection of the audience we have in front of us.
Lovely. I think Teekster wants to come in on that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to go from a different angle on this topic. And I think it's a topic that was kind of raised in various other presentations throughout the day. And it's like this element of fear. I think what we need to do is almost like encourage people to fail, make mistakes. And I think, you know, if you, especially in cooking, like I found out last night, well, that recipe went wrong. You know, failing is not a negative thing. Failing through learning is actually really, really positive. And especially with visual arts, it's quite easy to make something, you know, a mistake and improve on that. So one thing we should basically tell students is to remove the element of fear and encourage them to make mistakes. And through those mistakes, they can actually learn and become confident. But, you know, it's not because students have a lack of creativity. Maybe there's an actual actor there who wants to be a really, really, you know, a profound next BAFTA award-winning, you know, actor, but they haven't got that confidence yet. So it's a case of just removing that fear, letting them fail, but making them, you know, keep going forward with their momentum.
Thank
Brilliant.
you.
I think Flo's got something to say about the source of that fear.
I'll just unmute. I have actually, because if you think back to when you were children, I remember when my son was small, when he fell over, it was only when he looked at me that he started crying. And I was like, you know, scrape your knees off and dry them off. But so what is it as adults or young people that when they get a pencil in their hand, or they're asked to do something creative, they want it to be so perfect. It's got to be this, you know, they've got to rub it out until they get it to the umpteenth time. You think, don't rub it out, you know, because I say to them, if you rub it out, you can't see the mistake. And then you're just going over the same mistake. So it is, where does that fear come from? That idea of perfection. It's got to be right. Oh, I can't get it. I can't do it because it's got to be done. You just think no. And I think we have to encourage that and say, you know what, it's okay. It's getting it wrong is good. You know, yep, that's not a problem. Getting it wrong is good. Otherwise we'll end up with our people being so timid of just being, they're just not going to be free to actually just get on, dive in. And that's what I think when I teach art. It's like, you know, yep, dive in, get stuck in. You know, dive in the water. I'll throw the rubber ring to you later. But it's that analogy that I think is what's kind of stultifying our young people. It's this idea of they mustn't get it wrong. And where did that come from? Is that us? Was it society?
Goodness me, that's, you just made me. I went to a grammar school and I got 2 out of 10 for my first ever attempt at an art assignment, and ever since I've believed I am rubbish at art. So maybe today will change that. But I think both Harmeet and Helen want to come in on this. So should we go Harmeet then Helen?
Yeah, I just want to bring it from a whole school perspective, actually. So back in 2004 on my PGCE, I was in a school in Slough, and they celebrated the fact that they had 50 languages spoken by different students from 35 different countries. And the Senko said to all of us as PGCE students, if we have one pupil celebrating a cultural event, then we as a whole school will celebrate it. And I thought this was absolutely amazing that they were celebrating to raise awareness and cultural differences. So, you know, just going back to fear, I mean, this allows pupils to be open, and I think it's important for students to feel comfortable and have the confidence to discuss their cultural background or fears. And also, I don't know how many people watched that Channel 4 show, I think it was, The School That Tried to End Racism. You know, they were challenging stereotypes and racial biases, and I thought it really was quite interesting. But from a school perspective, and I'm not talking about all schools, but apart from a Black History Month assembly, schools don't even know how to start or even tackle this issue of raising the awareness. And they might not place as much emphasis that's required. And instead you're fielding questions such as, you know, why is there not a White History Month? And, you know, schools have a responsibility to educate their students. So, I mean, there's a lot going on about decolonizing the curriculum, but I think that the schools actually need training, because for some staff, it's really difficult. You know, you might say the wrong word or something, and it can end up in a complaint. And, you know, that also comes back to confidence and fear. So I do think that schools need training. Otherwise, I think it will remain in some schools as an odd assembly rather than being built into the curriculum.
Come on in, Helen.
I'll be very brief because we've got loads to still cover. I think all I was going to say around that fear of failure is I think sometimes when we're working as teachers or as artists in schools, it's really important for us to not have a fixed point of what the right answer is. And I think that's actually why the arts is so valuable as a tool for change, confidence building and all of that. And I think it is about not having that predetermined, closed task-based learning, and actually genuinely having an open-ended kind of process that you can pinch rewards and achievement along the way. So I'll kind of pause there because I know we've got lots more to say, and I could get a bit, I could go off on one on that.
I just wondered, Imrana, from working with communities, is there anything that schools could learn in terms of thinking about that diversity and the cultural capital of individuals?
Yeah, I think in my presentation, I was talking a lot about, in terms of when we talk about diversity, actually what's the starting point. And I think perhaps the starting point has to, in this case, be top down. Well, no, sorry, it should be bottom up, in the sense that we should be empowering the young people and perhaps bringing them into the decision-making process. And it's the same with grassroots communities as well, because if we have a pre-agenda of what it is that we want to, what work we want to do, we're already kind of failed in terms of that kind of real engagement. So yeah, I think it just needs to start there, that we're having those conversations. I know, we've been talking about Helen spoke about it, that active listening. That if you're going to actually ask people's opinions, you do then need to really do something about it. It shouldn't just be a tick box exercise where you want some information. So yeah, I think that's a starting point.
Lovely. Joe, should we move on to the next?
Flo.
Quick comment from Flo, and then move on to the next question.
Someone in the chat, and I think it might have been Louise, as on the Twitter, she said leaders need to be bold, and I think that's so true. Leaders need to be bold, and I'm sorry to say, acting a top-down approach for me doesn't work. If you've got to have it distributed leadership. So it is a question of everybody buys into that, and if schools are going to change and have these conversations, which at times may be uncomfortable, it has to be with everybody and not just the regular few, or so-and-so is doing, I don't know, PSHE, they'll do it. It's got to be everybody buys into it and not just the same individuals. Otherwise, we're just basically, as Imrana says, we're just having a tick box, which doesn't help anybody, and nobody really moves on. You're just sticking a plaster over an old wound that just keeps gaping.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Flo, for adding that bit. So, and you're obviously reading some Twitters as well. You're multitasking there. So in a way, this is very much linked to that question. Really, is how do we use the arts to really empower individuals to find their voice and find their agency, really, for changing futures. I'll go to Helen, please.
Yes, sure. We're talking with a group of young people who are kind of school refusers and things at the moment online. And as an ex-school refuser myself, I'm always interested quite genuinely about what their answer is. And we came up with, we've all got our zone of genius. It's just a lot of us are very uncomfortable thinking of it like that. And I think that kind of not really feeling what you're good at is good enough for what other people will judge you as. And if you're genuinely going to give someone a voice, you have to give them the confidence to recognize what their zone of genius is. And I think sometimes it can be a really small thing, like one of the young people said to me on a session, I was asking her, and I must admit, I'm slightly guilty of having maybe a lower expectation of what she could come up with creatively. And I said, so where would this character be, and what would they be doing, and why are they telling this story? Trying to go through a character approach to having a voice. And she just came up with this most beautiful kind of picture through her words of where this person was and what they were feeling. And I that's how it came about. I said to her, you're a genius, because you've just given me something I can completely picture in those few seconds. And so I think it is about, if we're going to give people a voice, it's, as Imrana was saying earlier, you've got to listen to it and do something about what that voice says. And I think we've got to keep it a conversation, because that's equal, isn't it? Rather than I'll tell you what to do and then I'll tell you how well you did it. It's kind of got to stay a little bit more genuinely, and I will react to what you give me next like a real conversation would, rather than, but I'm going to tell you this because I'm really good at this and you need to know I'm really good at this. And instead, I think we've actually got to go to it being much more genuine. And certainly that's why I missed several years of refusing to go to school, because my teachers didn't do that. So I think we've really got to listen if we want to give people a voice, and then find the right channel for their zone of genius, so it's credible.
Lovely. It's very much about giving them that ownership, isn't it? And that self-confidence that their voice is, it matters, and we believe in it. Andrea, did you want to go next? I put a little question in the chat box here, but I can't. I'm really sorry, I can't see anything other than my words and a few that are coming at the bottom. So I don't know if Andrea or Teekster, you want to go next?
Well, I think Harmit wanted to jump in at that point. I may have been mistaken. No, he didn't. Right, okay, because I'm a bit behind the chat as well. But I love what Helen said about the confidence building, and many of us have got so many different stories that we can talk about and speak about, in terms of the day the child had that eureka moment, the day that somebody just blew you away with the performance, or the child who just came back and go, Miss, I get this music, or I know how to play the piano with two hands. And we're quite lucky, because if, as teachers of the arts, we have got a variety of different techniques and media that we can go to, and that's why I think when we are teaching, it is worth making sure that we are diverse in what we are teaching. So what type of media we're teaching, what are the processes we're doing today, just so that we are accommodating everyone's needs, and we're trying to cater as well as we can.
Lovely, thank you. Teekster?
Sorry, I'm mute again. I think one of the main things, I think teachers have a great responsibility, because they're also, especially if they find a student that really is passionate about the arts, is actually you know, if there's something that they truly want to invest themselves in, is actually give them like a talk on like a mini long-term plan. You know, broad, cause some broad thing. Because one thing which I never knew when I went into the creative is how vast the creative sector was, and it's almost like, unfortunately, due to the syllabus, is art is not really explained. You know, it was only draw this and that's the end of your art session. I mean, the entire art curriculum is actually really, really vast. It's a shame that I've learned this now as an adult, because I would have gone probably maybe in another creative area. I mean, I think what I know that, you know, teachers are kind of stretched at the moment, so maybe we can involve like having like role models or even mentorships of people that actually can have people to students can look up to, and actually gain kind of information and basically help them in the journey, or maybe encourage them to, you know, to provide opportunity them to actually express themselves or get involved in, you know, either community projects or small local projects to basically display their work, or, you know, maybe just to help exhibiting their work if they're really truly passionate. It's encouraging those kind of like seeds and actually nourishing them so they actually want to commit to it after they leave school.
Lovely, thank you. Emma, was anyone else wanting to add to this in conversation in the chat? Someone says,
Yeah.
can I jump in? But I've no idea who that is.
Andrea, and I think Flo may have something to add because she's put a few comments in. So should we do Andrea and Flo?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a question to Teeksta. I mean, Teeksta, you're an artist in your community. What was it that gave you that confidence to be an artist in your community? Was it something that somebody told you at school? You know, what was the thing that said, right, this is it, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, and I feel okay with that?
I'm going to be honest, right? This is going to sound so typical from a minority point of view. Even though I excelled at art at school, it was actually, Imrana, we probably can jump in on this. It's actually looked down on like some, you know, the minorities, from the minority section of the kind of like, community. So it's not till I got older that I kind of used art as a way to connect back to my heritage and actually use that as a storytelling method. I mean, if I really want to break it down, there was this art competition, a national one, and I said, if I win that, I'm going to take it seriously, because it was like a hidden hobby that, like most of us do. You just like, you know, people who sing in the shower, or, you know, somebody who kind of like secretly makes cupcakes to their friends and gives them out. And like, oh my God, you should be on Great British Bake Off. It's the kind of like hidden talent. And then I told myself, if I win this kind of like, you know, art competition, a national one, I'm going to take it really, really seriously. And unfortunately, I did win it. So then I was cursed to basically follow this kind of like path. Or fortunately, I don't know how you want to spin that.
I think, can I just pop in? I think you're so right, Teeksta, in the sense that, you know, being of Nigerian heritage, my parents, I was either going to be a doctor, lawyer, or a vet. So when my art teacher said you're good, I was like, oh, now I'm going to have to tell Daddy that I don't want to do those things, you know. And my art teacher says I can be an artist, you know. And our parents generation is very different. They just think, first thing my dad said was, well, how are you going to support your family? And I said, I can. I know I can do it, you know. And I guess you must also have. It took a lot to convince him at 16 that I want to be an artist, but I guess one of his things said, he said, as long as you're happy, and I think that's so important. As long as you're happy, then, you know, go ahead. And thank goodness, it's been a good living so far. I can't complain. But it is that cultural pull between, yeah, you've got to get a good job, and, you know, and I think, well, actually, I do have a good job, and I think now we as practitioners, it's for us to guide the young people. So actually, did you know that this is just the beginning of it? And almost do a little spidergram, say, well, art's in the middle. and yet you can go here in engineering, you can do technical stuff here, you can be a games person, so they can see, well, actually, and I think the creative market has changed so much that the options that were available to us when we were younger are just so different now. Influencers, social media, and it all comes through the arts, through creativity. And I think, even blogging and writing, so I think those of us who are in schools really have to kind of shout a bit louder and drown out the noises that I think Deborah said, she places art on the same level as math and English. And I think that should be how it should be across the board. And we're not sort of subjugated to, the blue square league. It's not on. we should be celebrated.
Brilliant, Flo. Imran Teekster directed a comment to you and I saw your face change. So would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had the question, when are you going to get a proper job? So it's so I never know how to answer that. But what I was going to say in response to Andrew's question as well was, I mean, I always treated initially anything creative I was doing as a hobby. That was until I had somebody from a CPP network, Revoluted Arts, say to me, actually, do you know the work that you're doing? You're actually a producer, that all that you've done. And she gave me the label of creative producer, and I started laughing. I was like, no, I don't do that. That's not me. So it took me a long time to actually really kind of hold on to that and say, yeah, actually, I am doing that. So definitely, I think, especially if you're from minoritized communities, you do need that, because you haven't had those discussions, those role models growing up. So yeah, it's in that sense, we need somebody else, to kind of aid, I think.
Yeah. My husband's from a minority community too, and journalism was never seen as a proper job either. He's still doing it though, to everyone's disappointment. But Jo, I think we've probably got time for one question with a short answer from each person. No pressure.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to pick the question carefully. I think in terms of, as we were talking about, the hierarchy of subjects. So, and we think about creativity and we think about the arts. What is it that education generally, do you think, can learn from the arts, that they could take elements that we do in the arts and use it across the board? So, Hamit, would you like to start on that one?
Okay, so I'll keep it short and sweet. In terms of sessions that I've delivered, so I actually teach computing. In terms of delivering CPD in the workplace, we quote that students in the workplace lack creativity, creative thinking, communication, and collaboration. And I think all of those can totally come from the arts. So I think students can be agents of their own creativity, and it encourages people to think differently.
Lovely, thank you. Helen?
Yeah, I'm just kind of nodding at that, because one of the things we often do is teach an employability skills course just using drama. And it's actually getting people to consciously kind of like almost forum their own session by, okay, what am I doing now? I'm collaborating, like Harmeet said, or I'm thinking differently, or I'm listening to someone, or I'm trusting someone else, or I'm part of a team. And then if you actually gather that list of things throughout that session, you've kind of got the employer's dream list of everything, of those behaviors that mean you can learn, you can work. And I think, as one employer we were doing this with said to us, we can teach a lot of skills. We can kind of deliver training on how to use programs or particular systems, but we can't teach people these skills. They kind of, in the workplace, this has to kind of come younger. It has to be a behavior, just like we kind of, I don't know, can genuinely do a lot of other things. Like if you ride a bike, you hold the handlebars, your feet do this. But if you're going to learn to be creative, it's just got to become second nature. It's got to be in all the other subjects and in our lives. And as all of you have said, it can't be what you get to do as a treat at 3:15. You know, it's not enough. It's got to be kind of one of our 5 a day. It's got to kind of nourish us from within, I think, if it's actually going to mean we are those people. Yeah, sorry, getting a bit passionate about it on a Saturday night.
Passion's good. Shall we go Andrea, Flo, Imrana, then Teekster?
Oh my God, Helen, I've got goosebumps. I love that. One of the 5 a days. It's like, and you're right. It should not be an after school thing. It needs to be or a Richmond activity. Now, for me, it's, you know, just putting what will a young person gain from this? It's that uniqueness, the ability to be able to celebrate their own identity, the fact that no work is the same, everyone's work is different. It's the risk taking, it's the decision making, it's being brave, and it's the confidence which they get from studying our subject. So that's what it's all about for me.
Thank you. Flo?
I think when I think of what have I gained from being an artist, there are so many skills I've gained as a freelancer, you know, been able to talk to people, and I think not being scared to try. I think that's the thing, as you know, art should be given a prominence. That's it's art is at the center and everything feeds in and feeds out of it, and that's how it should work, rather than, oh well, you know, you can do a bit of a, dare I say it, oh, just go to that session at the end of the day, or you know, you're just doing some sort of, sometimes it's spoken in a way that's dismissive, and that's also part of the problem, is that as practitioners we really need to be, and that's everybody, you know, even if the head teacher couldn't draw or couldn't do anything creative, be positive about it. That way it feeds into every, so I think as long as it's within the curriculum and it feeds all subjects, students won't see it as an add-on, and it just becomes, as you said, as Andrew said, it is the 5 a day. It's the apples, the oranges, and that's it. You know, art is, you almost like you can have that and you dip in and you dip out, rather than it's a treat and it just sits there looking happy until you decide to pick it up. So I like that 5 a day. I'm having that top one.
Am I going next? So I was just going to say, I think a lot of it is about recognizing that the everyday creativity that is everywhere and anywhere. We're literally surrounded by it. We just need to look at the trees, or we need to look at you know, a bird flying, or whatever it can be. It's when we recognize that everything around us is creative and we can be creative. And again, it's coming back to what I was saying in the presentation, that who defines what art is and what that art should look like. And the next step really is to redefine that and to reclaim this space of whatever we say art and creativity is. And once we redefine that, we can, you know, we can recognize lots of skills as being creative, and hopefully, you know, yeah, just to kind of help that flourish, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Teekster?
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing stuff that's been said. I don't know if I can really add to that, but two things just want to get off my chest is that, not to add a downer to this, but I know that schools are pressured, things are being cut, but that doesn't mean that, you know, people should be giving up. So if they do have students that are really interested, or if their particular course doesn't really cover what they are really passionate about, maybe they should invest time in, you know, social clubs and stuff to actually involve themselves in art, which they're actually really, really passionate about. And like I said before, it's encouraging that. And I think this is probably why all art is really important. Like Imrana said, you go to a park, there's some beautiful statues there, there's the trees. You know, the way you walk into a room, how music adds like a certain ambience to kind of like the atmosphere, or, you know, the way people dress and the way they design clothes to show a symbol status. All those little elements are used using a creative mindset. And we should really, really encourage that. because I think even when we get hit with a problem, we always ask the creative thinker to resolve the problem. So there's so much heavy reliance on creativity that we need to basically understand the importance of it, because at the end of the day, if we don't have that space to encourage that creativity, then we will have creativeless leaders showing us, causing problems for us.
Can I jump in, Joe? I want to end with a really hard question from the chat. And there is a danger here that we're each preaching to the converted and we're all nodding and we all agree with each other. And Sophie's put a question in the chat and it's disappeared up because there are so many comments. But basically her question is, that's all very well, but how do we convince senior leaders that the arts are important? And Flo's written here, we need to get them to unite with their inner child and play a little bit, which is lovely. But Harmeet, I'm going to put you on the spot because you are a senior leader and you are in charge of curriculum and you're not an arts specialist, I think you said. Yeah. So let's just, it's not ideal in a lot of schools at the moment. We know that a lot of schools are still fighting for the buckets and the maths and English. So go, you've got about 1 minute.
Okay, so for senior leaders to consider it, we need the EBAC scrapped, we need performance tables scrapped. Otherwise, you need a really brave, strong leadership team that can see beyond performance tables, because they're put under scrutiny from their governors, league tables, performance tables, and it makes it extremely difficult for them. So, you just think you might be aware in terms of if you would if a student wanted to do art, textiles and photography, they wouldn't be able to because they've all got the same JCQ discount code, those sorts of things. You need a brave head teacher. I'm not answering the question, but what I'm trying to say is it's got to be a leadership that will look beyond the performance tables and think about their own ethos, drive and culture.
And the EBAC, someone's just asked, is the English Baccalaureate, which is basically a set of 5 subjects. It's basically the ranking with English and maths at the top, then humanities, then and languages. And it's that horrible reform which put arts as in the 3rd tier, essentially. Helen, you've got 30 seconds if you'd like to come in on that one.
I'll try and do it in less, just because I know there's other valid voices out there. I think if we were really thinking, we're preaching to the converted, and imagine the cynics out there. We need to say to them, the arts isn't the alternative. It belongs with all the subjects. If you're an engineer, you are creative by the very meaning of being an engineer. So why don't we have it all? Why do we even make the choices? Why don't we have the bricks and the mortar? Because we'll build a much stronger building. And why don't we actually genuinely, look beyond, as Harmeet said, the output of a subject and think about the output of the people that we're teaching. And I'll leave it there because I know I'm short of time.
Wonderful. And that brings us to the end of an epic day. I don't know what my dreams are going to be like tonight, but they're definitely going to be interesting. Thank you, Jo, for being 10% bravest. Jo's never chaired a panel before, and she's been amazing. Thank you to of you on the panel and every single one of our presenters and our 963 ticket holders and all of my colleagues at Aspire. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Quite a few people have been thanking me, which is lovely, but actually you guys have done the hard work today. You've stepped up, you've been brave, you've been the ambassadors for the arts. And if there's one thing that is my passion, it's to give voice and give platform and try to be a decent ally. And if I've done that, then it's been a few weeks very well spent. So have a wonderful evening, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think Richard is going to put up Rebecca's final drawing. Oh yes, and Rebecca, of course. And Rebecca has been the absolute cherry on top of today. The wonderful images coming up. I've tweeted them all. And she's also illustrated this final session, which we will share on Twitter and LinkedIn. And we'll just leave that up there for you to enjoy as you go off and pour a well-earned cup of tea or something stronger. Thank you, everybody.